Germans have voted for change, with the country's Conservatives claiming victory in the national election. With all the votes now tallied, a two-way coalition government now looks far more likely. It would bring together Friedrich Merz's Conservatives and the Social Democrats, who lost this election but still appear poised to end up in government again.
We, the CDU and CSU, the Union bloc, have won this 2025 election. Friedrich Merz is the man in the driving seat. As clear winner of this election, he's set to become German Chancellor, though he still faces the tricky task of building a coalition. His centre-right CDU-CSU bloc received the most votes by a clear margin, though at under 30% it's not the support Merz wanted. Olaf Scholz will stay on as caretaker chancellor, but his days as Germany's leader are numbered. His SPD party achieved its worst result in a national election since the 19th century. Friends, comrades, this is a bitter election result for the Social Democratic Party. It is a defeat. The Alternative for Germany party nearly doubled its support, the strongest showing for a far-right party since the Second World War. In the post-election discussion on public TV, co-leader Alice Weidel had her eyes on the levers of power.
Our hand is outstretched to take part in the government. We will support the CDU-CSU when there are motions that we approve of, if they go in the right direction. The will of the German people is clear. They want change. They want a coalition between the AfD and the Conservatives.
Weidel predicted the Conservative bloc would not be able to form a stable government, and the AfD would in time become Germany's largest party. But Merz said his party had little in common with the AfD. You can reach out to us as much as you like. We will not pursue misguided policies. The Greens saw a small drop in support, punished as all the government parties were. Among smaller parties, the left benefited from a surge in support from younger voters. It was a campaign dominated by fears. Fears about migration and Russia, a faltering economy, and the fear that Donald Trump is changing Germany's relationship with the United States. Friedrich Merz says he has a plan for all of those issues, but first he needs to find out who will join him in government.
Well, breathing new life into the German economy will be a focal point of coalition talks after voters said it was one of their top issues. High costs and growing uncertainty have racked the country since the beginning of the war in Ukraine in 2022. Europe's largest economy has shrunk over the past 2 years and job losses are mounting. Business groups are pushing for less bureaucracy and more competitive energy and labour costs. Well, for some analysis now, DW reporter Stephen Beardsley is here in the studio with me. Stephen, so we have the votes have been tallied, forming a two-party coalition looks a little bit more likely now. Is this the news that business leaders were hoping for?
I think the news that business leaders are hoping for is that things move quickly when it comes to forming a new government. And obviously, if you're talking about a two-party coalition versus a three-party coalition, that probably from the outset looks a little bit more friendlier towards speed than, of course, a three-party coalition. So that seems to be the good news. But again, the real message is that there has to be speed and there has to be a unified vision at the end. Especially when you look at the outgoing government, that was a three-party coalition. It was very awkward from the beginning, and by the end, it was an absolute disaster. You had 3 different party leaders holding 3 different business roundtable events, each with their own focus. And even by their own admission, it was embarrassing, and there was no common vision. And so that's what business leaders want, is they want to see something move forward quickly, and they want it to be common. Because right now, the issues that Germany faces, they are not these kind of periodic weakening economy issues. It's structural. That means there has to be substantive, definite changes.
Right, so structural, I mean, we mentioned it there. There are big issues in the economy. It's sluggish, to say the least. So what will be top of the agenda for this next government that's going to eventually come in?
Again, top of the agenda is going to be that there is a unified vision. That is going to be the key thing, and that business leaders aren't left in the dark and they know where the government is going. Even if they don't agree with it completely, they can at least set their watch to that plan. That would be a good start. some of the things that are on the wish list, it depends on what sector we're talking about. But as you mentioned just a moment ago, high energy costs are a problem here. You have business groups that want to see the government do something about that. They want them to cap energy costs for industry, for example. It's not very easy to run a steel plant, to run a chemical plant. Ever since Russian gas became a no-go here in Germany, energy costs have risen dramatically. Another thing would be bureaucracy, regulation. There are new laws that have come into place here in Germany, and they're going to come into place in Europe that really require a lot more rule checking. They want those onerous regulations taken away. These would be some of the things. Also labor costs. But that could also lead to an issue when you talk about labor costs. Business leaders say that's a problem. That's one of the things pushing our costs up. That's one of the things that makes it hard to invest in Germany. If you're talking, and the CDU, I should say, who has really won, they had the best result for the election, they are very much amenable to a lot of those ideas. Their obvious coalition partner is the SPD, much more labor-friendly, as opposed to the CDU, much more business-friendly. And among the issues that the SPD pushed were raising the minimum wage further and even a 4-day work week. So you're going to see a little bit of, strife in that area. It's going to be interesting to see what happens if those are the coalition talks that go ahead between the SPD and the CDU. It's not a definite thing that it's just going to skate through.
Plenty of negotiation, to say the least. Now, migration was one of the main issues during the campaign. We've seen it being talked about time and time again. But at the same time, Germany needs to attract immigrants from abroad. So whatever new government comes in is going to have to strike a balance, right? How are they going to strike a balance?
Yeah, I think this is the internal tension that's facing the CDU and that's faced them for quite some time. Not so much on the business front, but in terms of migration, just how do you take some of those voters who are very angry about it from the AfD? That's going to be a focus of theirs going into this next government. And you're exactly right. Demographically, the structure of Germany is such that the big bump in the demographics, the demographic range is now going out. It's retiring. The baby boom is. And so you have less skilled workers. That's a fact of life that we're already seeing right now come into play. It's only going to be more exacerbated in the future. So how are you going to do that? They're probably going to focus on listening to Friedrich Merz and looking at their party platform to this point. They're going to focus more on deporting criminal migrants, for example, those who have been accused or convicted of a crime. They're going to focus more on little things like smoothing out payment systems, lowering payment systems for those who are pursuing asylum, things like that, instead of trying to ward off those who are actually coming in with skills that could be useful to the country. But that's going to be a fine line to walk. It's not going to be easy. And I think that's something that we're going to see play out over the next years. Can they walk that line properly? Because there's no doubt this country has to have migrants to be able to continue this economy, to be able to see it go off.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty of negotiations and talk over the next few weeks, and I'm sure you'll be keeping a great eye on it. DW reporter Stephen Beardsley, thank you.